And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It was meant to be the project that united the nation, but in the last few weeks, the building of the National Cathedral has become a major subject of division and controversy. There have been demands for full disclosure following revelations that the Finance Ministry has disbursed 200 million cedis allegedly without parliamentary approval. Well, tonight, in a bid to respond to these growing calls for accountability, the National Cathedral Secretariat has released a 7-page statement. The Secretariat confirms the project has stalled. It also claims General Overseer of the International Central Gospel Church, Pastor Mensah, had never been legally part of the Board of Trustees for the Cathedral, denying claims that he resigned. My colleagues Kweku Asante and Ernest Menu joins me now with full details of this statement. And Ernest, let me start with you. One of the key questions that had come up for the Secretariat and to government relates to the current economic crisis and a question about at what cost and whether this ultimately will benefit this country beyond the spiritual benefit. Will they have real, tangible economic benefit for us? What does the National Cathedral Secretary say about this?
This is the fifth paragraph, and it makes an economic point for the building of the National Cathedral. It says that the development of such infrastructure always involves upfront investment that might seem to be competing with other societal needs. Yet, the history of economic development shows that the economic impact of such project is almost immediate once the project is completed. In the meantime, there's an economic benefit in the building of the project, resulting in new jobs and the best ways for the country to create new revenue, not just regurgitate existing revenue. For instance, the prospect of attracting even just 10% of the over 600 million Christians in Africa as religious tourists who may aspire to visit the National Cathedral at some point in their lives. Now, it continues by saying that
it represents a major economic
opportunity for the country. Similarly, the growing interest in the project by black churches in America augurs well for the National Cathedral and the country. And Evans, you notice that the trustees have been outside the country in the diaspora also raising
trying
funds
to campaign for
this project.
I mean, Kweku, let's go to this subsequent question that had also come up. Whether this project is a private initiative of the president or is it a public one that requires that state resources, taxpayers' funds be devoted to it? The National Cathedral Secretariat responds to this.
Yeah, so they start by saying that the president, in his first announcement on the project on March 6, 2017, underscored the nature of the project as a national cathedral for interdenominational worship services to the nation. Subsequent elaborations led to three main reasons as the rationale for the project, namely, the first, gesture of thanksgiving, the second being symbol of the Christian presence and contributions to the nation, and finally, a personal pledge to God. Of these three reasons, the personal pledge came to be associated with the cathedral as, quote, a private project that needed to be developed without state support.
Okay.
For the avoidance of doubt, the National Cathedral is a national monument. Evans.
So that is what the statement says as far as whether or not it is a private or a public
and that third point under the National Cathedral public or private is key. He says, for the avoidance of doubt, the National Cathedral is a national monument and thus a public, not private project. Public, not private project. Legally, the National Cathedral of Ghana is a state-owned company,
limited by guarantee, and was incorporated under the Companies Act 1963, Act 179, on July 18, 2019. And Evans, this is important. So it is a company limited by guarantee and was incorporated under the Companies Act 1963, Act 179, on July 18, 2019. It says that we hope that this brings to closure the seemingly vexatious issues of whether the National Cathedral is a private or public initiative. And then it goes on to talk about...
So this is the point that you emphasize. The National Cathedral is a national monument and asset and not a private project. It is, however, being developed in partnership between the state and the church. So this is a major clarity from the Secretariat that as far as the Secretariat is concerned, the National Cathedral, because others have said that this was the president's private promise to God, a pledge he made privately to God to build. If you help me win elections, I'll build you a house, a cathedral, right? And so others have argued that if it's a private, then the president himself should raise the funds through his own private means and not burden the taxpayer.
But subsequently, Evans, we heard from some of the Board of Trustees when we spoke to them that this is taking on a national character. But the revelation in here that this has been properly registered under law is quite
and
new.
It is, quote, a state-owned company. So the National Cathedral, according to the Secretariat, is a state-owned company limited by guarantee. Kweku, what about this question about the disbursements that we've seen from the finance ministry and the questions around whether it was legally done or was it illegal?
So the statement explains that the president, in introducing the National Cathedral, indicated that although it was a national monument, he is determined that its building would not put undue financial burden on the state. Thus, the president proposed a partnership between the state and the Ghanaian Christian community at home and in the diaspora to develop it. Within the partnership, the role of the state was specified as follows, and 4 roles of the state. First being the appointment of the architect and design team. The second being the land and its preparation, setting up and equipping the secretariat, and then seed money, Evans.
Okay.
It continues to actually explain that the release of the seed money, as the finance minister indicated, is thus a practical response to the commitment made by the state in the National Cathedral project, which the Minister for Finance informed Parliament and the nation in his budget presentation in November 2018.
Okay, and let's...
So it says, given the need for the public to understand this partnership, in particular the role of the state, all publications from the Secretariat, including the National Cathedral Update, sent individually to members of Parliament, include this structure and the role of the state, quote, seed money for the National Cathedral as part of the role of the state in the project should therefore be public knowledge.
Okay, so we need to check this. So there's a statement here and a claim by the Cathedral Secretariat that they've sent updates, what they call the National Cathedral Update, individually to members of Parliament. So they should know the details.
Exactly.
And we need to check with the MPs. Did they receive that? Because we know that one of the key sources of the leaks had been some of the has he been receiving this National Cathedral update that the Secretary says they've been sending to individuals? Yes.
The next point will then talk about the procurement process.
It actually confirms that it went through competitive process by saying that following the procurement process approved by the Public Procurement Authority and with the input of the Attorney General, this is the first time you're hearing the AG's name in all this, was developed and signed between the Office of the President and Sir David Ajayi and Associates in August 2019 for full architectural and engineering services for the project. And then what this contract encompasses is in this
tall list of things that the architect was expected to do. Ernest, let's go into detail about the payments. The payments to the consultants, which has become controversial.
So right after that, you have this paragraph which talks about the payments. It says payments to the consultants, Ajayi Associates, is therefore based on this contract signed in August 2019 between Ajayi Associates and the Office of the President. So the contract was signed between Ajayi Associates and the Office of the President. These payments represent the fulfillment of the state's commitment in the appointment of the architect and design team and is separate from the seed money for the construction of the edifice.
Okay, so I see two things that the Secretary is saying here. That all the payments that we've seen, the leaked documents to Ajayi, was done by the presidency as part of their contribution under the aspect that deals with appointment of the architect and design team. Because from this statement, the presidency in the government said we'll take on some obligations. One of the key obligations is to appoint the architect and design team. So they will pay. I mean, so when I say they, it's the taxpayers' money. Taxpayers' money will be used to pay the architect.
The architect.
So the monies that have been given to Ajayi so far was done by the presidency
Exactly.
with taxpayers' funds, which is what they are clarifying. And then there's a second bit, which is the seed money,
Exactly.
which is separate.
Separate.
And they go into that. They give us details on this too.
Yes,
Is it
so-
in the very next?
It says, following the signing of the letter of intent between the board of the National Cathedral and the contractors, negotiation for the release of part of the seed money promised by the state was concluded, and the first tranche of the seed money, the cedi equivalent of $25 million, representing 10% of the total cost of the project at the time, was released on November 25, 2020. So this explains that the full cost of the National Cathedral has now changed, because
Yeah.
the $25 million that was paid
supposed to be
then
10%.
represented 10%.
Now we don't know what it represents now, because
Now.
now it's 350 million. Yeah, go on.
350,
Incidentally,
exactly.
it says the Minister of Chieftains and Religious Affairs, and we had picked up on this before, had appeared before Parliament and informed them about this 25 million
25
seed
million.
money from the government to the National Cathedral project when he was vetted
In
in
February.
2021. And this was reported extensively in the media, they say. It says the first tranche of the seed money was used for the mobile. And this is important, Ernest.
Yeah.
Let's break down the question of, so this $25 million,
25 million,
what
yeah.
did they use it for?
So it says the first tranche of the seed money was used for the mobilization of contractors to site excavation, builders' works, equipment and materials, the design of the integration of a Bible museum and biblical gardens to the project. Remember, this was not part of the initial project. And operational issues related to the domestic and international fundraising activities of the National Cathedral. So this is what the 25 million was used for.
So that is the $25 million.
The 25 million.
Continue, because there's a 25 million
second
cedis.
tranche of the seed money of 25 million cedis was released in May 2022 to pay the contractors to work for work described in Section IV. And Section IV is what details the long list of things expected.
Which includes
from
structural
the-
engineers, civil engineers,
Exactly.
envelope engineers, etc., mechanical engineering that needs to be done. And then what about what relates to all the disbursement? There are further clarity there in point 12.
So point 12 says all the disbursement from the state to the National Cathedral, therefore, have been based on the framework for the state's participation in the National Cathedral project, and the procurement of services using these funds have all been within the legal procurement practices.
We'll go on quickly to talk about another question that Samokujo Tablako raised about the employment of the cathedral secretary who is working at the president's secretariat. We'll address that. But there are a few things to note here.
Yeah.
Key question that comes up when they talk about the disbursement from the state so far is the $25 million and the 25 million CDs. Is it the end of the state's contribution to the project? It suggests, if you read it closely, that it is not, because it says that it is part payment. It mentions that specifically. It says, quote, following the signing of the letter between the board of the National Cathedral and the contract, negotiation for the release of part of the seed money promised by the state was concluded. And then he proceeds to talk about the part being $25 million and 25 million CDs. That suggests that the amounts that the finance minister has released so far may not be the last time we see. May not be the last time we see taxpayers' money used for this, and that was just part of the seed money. And so the question to ask the finance minister and the secretariat will be, how much more does the state and the taxpayer have to bear as part of the seed money? Because we know it's 25 million, and so far it's 200 million CDs, right?
Yes.
That in total. But now we know that is just part. So how much more do we have to contribute as taxpayers for this project in
Evans,
the interest of accountability?
If you read the statement, it admits that at the time the $25 million was released, that was supposed to be 10% of the initial
So again, the question
amount.
now is, so what we've released so far, how much of the project?
Of
What
the
percentage
project.
of the project is that
And
covering?
will that constitute seed money
Yeah.
as they envisage?
So there's still more questions, but then Kweku, Okoyeto Blacko had raised another question why somebody working at the presidency should be in charge of the secretariat. The secretariat response to this.
They say that the establishment of positions at the presidency for the National Cathedral of Ghana is a practical response to the state's commitment to, quote, set up and equip the secretariat of the National Cathedral. These positions are used to coordinate and mobilize for the project. These positions notwithstanding, the National Cathedral Secretariat works to keep costs down by operating with a very thin staff and using volunteers, including national service personnel and seconded personnel from the churches, whose remuneration are covered by the sponsoring church.
Okay, and then let's go to one of the biggest controversies since Sunday when Okoyeto Blacko made the disclosure on the probe on the Joy News channel that Pastor Mensah Otabil had resigned. So what is the alternative fact from the National Cathedral Secretariat, Ernest?
Well, it says that on January 13, 2017, the president inaugurated a 13-member board of trustees made up of leading clergy in the country. This was clergy appointed not as institutional representatives of church denominations, but rather as individuals with influence and visibility in the various church denominations. The National Cathedral was registered as a company limited by guarantee to be used as the instrument for the construction and management of the National Cathedral. The company was legally registered on 18 July 2019. The Board of Trustees had to be registered as the directors of the company. A member of the trustees, Dr. Mensah Otabil, the General Overseer of the International Central Gospel Church, had indicated that he couldn't give the needed attention to the project, so didn't register. So and this is boldened in the statement, Dr. Mensah Otabil did not resign from the board as being alleged, but excused himself at the point of registration of the directors in July 2019. For the avoidance of doubt, of all doubt, Dr. Otabil has not been a member of the Board of Trustees since July 2019.
Okay.
Dr. Mensah Otabil, this final line, nonetheless, remains actively interested in the project and continues to share his views on strategy with the Secretariat.
Okay, and then they make an admission, though. There's an admission about an oversight.
Yeah, the continuous use of his name and pictures on the website and publications was an administrative lapse by the Secretariat.
Okay, so there are a few questions there. So there's a few questions. First of all, the statement admits that there was a presidential inauguration of the 13-member Board of Trustees on 13th January 2017. When that inauguration happened, the 13 members included Mensah Otabil. Okay.
Yeah.
But then when they decided to register it, make it a legal entity on the 18th of July 2019. So Otabil had been a trustee per the president's inauguration
from January
for 2 years at least. From January 2017 to 2019.
2019, yeah.
Had been.
Yeah.
Then they decided to register it to become a legal entity. It was at that point, according to the secretary, that Dr. Mensah Otabil says, I won't have time. I can't give you all my time to this. So I'm stepping aside. So I won't be registered. Yeah. The point that there's a legal point they're making that legally, Mensah Otabil, Dr. Mensah has never been part of the Board of Trustees legally. Although he's been there in that capacity as an inaugural trustee. Legally, he's never been. So technically, they say he didn't resign, but that is a technical point. But for what do you say about the first 2 years? You know, he was there. His name was there. I mean,
and up until
so he raised
2
that
days
question.
ago, his name was still
there.
the
But they admit it was an administrative lapse.
From 2019.
So, but can you say that before the switch to make it a legal entity, he was technically a trustee, and so. It's semantics, really. He resigned. Some may still maintain. We'll get reactions to this, but that's a very interesting point. If you're just joining us, one of the key points out of this is from the Secretariat is that Dr. Mensah Otabil was never legally part of the board of trustees of the National Secretariat.
National
National Cathedral. What about the status of construction? This is another interesting part because we've seen documents this week that suggests that the construction has stalled.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the reality here, Kweku?
They start by saying that a rigorous international procurement process ultimately led to the selection of a joint venture led by Italian firm Rizzini di Echa, whose project portfolio includes the Zayed Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi and two of the leading construction firms in Ghana, Messrs. Babisotti and Sons and De Simone. The consortium of these three leading construction firms, namely Rizzini di Echa, Babisotti and Sons, De Simone, together formed Ribadi JV. The construction has started, but to understand the scale of work that has been done already, it is important to understand the following general details. The cathedral includes the following: 7 levels, 2 basement levels and 5 upper levels, making it the highest civic building in Accra, with a height of about 50 centimeter, and then the reference the Job 600 Parliament offices as 45 meters as a stand-alone structure, and with a bell tower reaching 58.5 meters high. The total internal area is 86,000 meters square
meters. Yeah.
Square meters. External civic realm, including gardens, driving and walkways, encompass 36,000 square meters. Evans. They go on to talk about.
So what has been done so far?
I mean,
we went to the site, and many have seen the drone shots and say, but nothing has happened here. So what really has happened so far with the monies that has been disbursed?
They say the NCG site establishment is complete. 5 cranes were purchased and delivered to the site. 3 cranes have been installed to date. A concrete batching plant has been set up in the East Gardens. A rubber cut and bending yard has been set up. Offices, staff canteen, wash and toilet blocks, warehouses, storages, lay-down areas have all been set up. Further establishments like the management, site staff, security, technical equipment and machinery, generators, tools have been provided by the contractor. An area of about 70,000 square meters has been cleared. About 120 trees within the construction perimeter have been retained. Existing services on site, electricity, water, sewage and telecommunication have been relocated. About 23,000 cubic meters have been excavated and removed from the site. About 1,400 cubic meters concrete has been laid so far. About 1,900 of rubber have been purchased and delivered to site, and about 222 of rubber have been installed to date. And finally, about 10,000 meters square waterproofing material has been purchased and started to be installed. Evans.
And that it says a project with this magnitude of the National Cathedral requires a substantial amount of preparation before structure begins to rise from the ground and visible to the general public. So Evans, I guess that's the answer to the question. Many are saying all of this, we are seeing nothing.
Patient.
We need to be patient. Construction has stalled for the time being due to the vagaries of the fundraising, but should restart soon.
Okay, so that's a very important admission, and it's a confirmation of the leaked documents that we saw from Samokudito Ablakwa, that the contractors have had to lay off their workers, and the Secretariat is now confirming that indeed it's true that construction has stalled. And is due to fundraising. So they're having fundraising challenges. We heard from the Christian Council boss who admitted that fundraising hasn't been what they expected.
And the CEO had indicated that it was going to be the National Cathedral Week.
Okay, so they detail this quickly. So what are they going to do to fix the funding challenges?
So the first is the mass mobilization strategy, at the heart of which is 100 Cities Club, which seeks to mobilize 1 million Ghanaian able and willing to give 100 cedis a month to the project. A short code of *979# has been developed for this purpose. Then there's the church mobilization, including statutory budgetary support from the churches, and the National Cathedral Week, which for 2022 is slated for July 4 to 10th. Private sector strategy, at the heart of which is a business roundtable to mobilize Christian businesses and Christian businessmen and women to financially support the project. And finally, international fundraising, which includes Ghanaian diaspora churches and other international actors who support the vision of the National Cathedral project.
Okay. And then you're expecting a few things to happen. The Board of Trustees will be holding a press conference next week, during which they will launch the National Cathedral Week, which will be from the July 4 to 10. And at the press conference, they will also provide a comprehensive overview of the financing and fundraising efforts and the targets going forward on this. So that's, in essence, is the statement from the National Cathedral Secretariat, signed by Dr. Paul Poku Mensah, Executive Director, National Cathedral of Ghana, in an attempt to resolve the controversies that had been generated. Sam Okudita-Blakwa, who is a ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee, was first to raise these issues with leaked documents that he had published on his social media pages. He joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Okudita-Blakwa, thank you for your time here on Top Story. Okay, we'll get him to join us shortly, and Ghana Connect itself will be discussing this a bit more. We have a poll up now that the explanations had come. I wonder what you make of the National Cathedral with the disclosures that we've had here on Top Story. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, we'll get some reactions to this.
Sweetheart, give me proper breakfast. Later, give me lunch. And for dinner, make it a buffet.
My one and only. You know what? Just let me receive the alert. And I will sort you out. Just add the charges,
For here, never pay for transfer charges. Vodafone Cash still has no transfer charges from Vodafone Cash to all networks. You don't have Vodafone Cash? What the cash? Yes. You don't have to pay more on Vodafone Cash. Switch now to the correct network and save. Only e-levy applies. Dial *110# to send money now. Vodafone.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wait, Mr. Lawson. So what is this?
I'm checking my money.
For what?
It's getting to the end of the month. I'm going to pay my rent.
You haven't heard of rent to own?
Rent to own?
Well, under the Planned City Extension project, they offer you a whopping discount for this month of May. But listen, you pay just 20% of the property and it's all yours. 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses. Plus, they are even developing beachfront house. Mr. Lawson, reach them on www.newaccra.city or call 05555 30300 0577 9111 01 or 055 7054 635. Planned City Extension Project, shaping Ghana's urban future.
I'm moving into my...
You better.
So you're a style seeker. You just love it when people stop and stare as you drive by. That's why you always select top-of-the-range products that make you the talk of the neighborhood.
I love
you
it.
revel in comments they make behind your back. No wonder you choose from the new Peugeot 2008, 3008, and 5008 SUV range that makes every eye pop each time you cruise along.
Wow.
Now that's how to change the game and give people something to talk about. Stop by Silver Star Auto today and let's talk about your new Peugeot SUV.
Peugeot.
Who's ready to pray? Who's ready to really, really, really pray? Stand in the Gap 2022. 48 hours non-stop prayer is here, ready and boiling. Prophet Gideon Danso is sounding an urgent call to all prayer addicts, warriors, and worshippers across the globe to gather at the Prayer Factory Jowulu, Accra, Ghana. There's coming a deep roar of prayer and a fresh fall of fire. This you don't want to miss. On the front line with Prophet Gideon Danso are Reverend Ben Doku, Reverend Ampia Kofi, and of course, the prayer contrivance, Pastor John Hanna, USA. Worship will be lifted up with the sound of the trumpet by Pastor Nathaniel Bassi from Maverick City, Rhino Affair, and from this city, EWC Live. Date and time, Thursday, 23rd June, 6 p.m. kickoff, and we will pray non-stop through to Saturday, 25th of June, 6 p.m. Venue, the Prayer Factory, Jowulu, on the Obasanjo Road, next to the Allied Heights, Accra. For more info and live streaming, visit stand48.com. Stand in the Gap, 48 hours non-stop prayer. Refuse to leave the same. Empowerment Worship Center, where God lives.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Ghana Connect.